Happy weekend, folks, and welcome to another episode of Plan A Conversation. Right off the bat, I'm so excited to announce clearly you're seeing us in a digital framework. We have upgraded our whole experience. And thanks to our friends over at Zencaster, if you're ever trying to figure out what's a really great podcasting platform to not only capture the digital aspects of what it is that you're trying to do, but also the audio and top notch studio quality, they are your people. Again, Zencaster. So we're so excited to have our very first digital show. And I'll get into some of the nuances of what you should expect in these next coming episodes and cannot wait for today's conversation. But of course, we got to take care of some business first. A note from our sponsor. This podcast is sponsored by Mateo Records. Be sure to check out Joshua Mateo CD and Session wherever you buy music. And also for individual sponsors, a special thank you to Dr. Adrian Burt over in the BK here in New York City, as well as those good folks in St. Croix, James Rollins. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. And as you all know, we're shopping this podcast for syndication and other brand ambassador opportunities. So if you know someone who would be a good partner in this like-minded world of creating purpose-driven content, go ahead and let us know that information too. We have our deck and one pager on practice for you right now. So to get in today's conversation, it's one of those things where life has like a full circle moment. Me and today's guest, literally, we have not really seen or spoken to each other in years, on top of years, on top of years. We met through a mutual friend. One random day at Princeton Theological Seminary, and our paths have sort of been intertwined ever since. And one life, we'll get into that as well. We were married in the former life. A little bit of a joke. We'll talk about that. But without further ado, Dr. Hamaria Crockett, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I love it. That was a great introduction. Thank you.
We'll have No, I'm so glad to have you on this podcast because not only have you been someone that I've been watching there whose career has just been blossoming and just booming, you've been doing it very purposefully and have overcome a lot of things in your life. And so one of the reasons why I want to have you on this podcast in particular is because to me, your success story is what a lot of people are trying to figure out for themselves. And so let's just get to this right out the gate. Who is Hamaria Crockett and how does she define herself?
That's a great question. I have learned a long time ago that I get to define who I am. It's not other people that get to tell me who I am. I know when I was growing up, my mother always said that reminded her, if you were in the 80s of Punky Brewster, if you grew up in the 90s, I would be considered Blossom. If you grew up in the 2000s, I could be considered a Powerpuff Girl. But every single thing that each one of those individuals represent is who I am, which is a person that likes to help others because I'm already whole. I already have, and I grew up where my mother, my father allowed me to be exactly who I was. And so I didn't have to kind of try to figure it out because I was allowed to be myself. And so I've always been able to give from the abundance of who I am. So I define myself as a helper. I define myself as a giver. I define myself as an individual that enjoys being a support system for others because I have that tenacity and that ability to give out of who I have already been established to be. So that's, I guess, a short version of who I would describe myself as.
Yeah, and it's an overflowing of who you are in your professional life and your personal life. And if I'm listening to this podcast, a couple of words that just comes out in my mind is whole and that individual persona. And you spoke about having a mother and a father who helped you define that. And Hamaria, I have to say, when we first met, I mean, I think you had a huge flower pendant. I think you had maybe a sparkle. There you go, right? And you might have had a tulle dress on,
Yeah,
or a skirt. But what I'm saying is, you were clear,
Yeah.
clear about that from the very beginning. If I'm listening to this, how did that even happen and occur? And how did you have enough confidence to sort of be that individual that just stands out in a crowd and comfortable with that?
You know what? I honestly didn't know the difference. My father, for like the first 5 years of me growing up, my
Mm.
dad, he had just gotten injured and he was at home with me. And so my dad just let me kind of be. So whatever I wanted to wear, however I wanted to look, I didn't know that it was anything different. So he was just kind of that advocate for me, that he was just like, yeah, let her wear whatever she wants. He used to always tell my mom, let her be whatever she wants.
Yeah.
Just kind of let her do whatever she wants. And as long as I was respectful and as long as I kind of stayed as a child, but still having a voice, that is what I think empowered me to kind of keep being that, because I didn't know that there was any other way. I think that what happens with a lot of people is they're given the opposite. They are told, don't do this and don't be
Mm.
this and don't say this and don't act like this, because it is the other people around them that they're trying to either impress, or other people around them that they're trying to be like. And my dad, he was just like, be like yourself. So from just a kid,
Mm.
I was looking at my first grade picture, and I was in the front because I'm extremely tall in my head, at least. And I had on this pleather shirt, and I was just like, yeah. All the other students was like, sitting there very proper, and I was like, I'm here. So it has always been that way.
All
I
right.
don't know anything different. So for me, as I continue to develop and to
Wow.
grow, it really had been a situation where I never compared myself to anybody else. And I never needed to. I never felt inside of me that
Mm.
I needed to be like anyone else, because I felt it was enough to learn me. It was enough for me to figure out who I am, or who I was, or who I was growing to be. So it was never a situation where I needed to compare myself to anyone else, because I was already on my journey to discover who I was.
Wow. I'm about to throw this microphone across the room in a minute, because that, I think, is the essence of this podcast. I talk about like the becoming of, the best version of who you are, so that you can contribute to the human condition in the very best way that is uniquely yours. And if someone did not have that experience, and they didn't have the parents that offered them this level of individual being, and you're talking about like the opposite of that, how do we get that as adults now? I mean, a lot of us are in our late 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and especially like the listeners of this podcast, 25 all the way to 65 is like the target audience. And they always say, I'm still trying to figure out who I am and how not to define myself by what other people think. How do we get there?
That's such a good question too. So I actually did my research. So it was probably about now about 10 or 11 years ago that it came to me. I was reading an article about individuals that wore fake items. So like wore fake glasses or fake
Mm.
purses, fake hair. And I was reading the article, and this particular author, she suggested that if you did these things, that then impeded upon your authenticity. And I just thought, really? That's just was so fascinating to me. So I kind of jumped in, and actually that's what I wrote my dissertation about, is the authenticity of women particularly. And this statistic has
Mm.
always stunned me. It says if a girl doesn't get the ideology, the consistency, the understanding of who she is by the time she's 12, takes her to her late 20s, early 30s to start asking the question, who am I and why am I here? For boys, it's 13. So you ask the question of how can you start figuring out, one, if you have a child in that age group, start reassuring them that they're just perfect the way that they are, and helping them to explore their own personality, helping them to explore their goofiness or their quirks or their ways of doing things, like figuring out who they are and letting them have the space to do that. If you are in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, or 50s, or even 60s, it is about you removing the layers of what you believe others think about you, and start to
Mm.
identify about what you think about yourself. And then when you think about this of who I am, where did it come from? Where did the thoughts and the ideas about you come from? Did they come from you, or did they come from people outside of who you are? Is it what you really think about yourself, or is it that someone put this label on you and you've accepted it? A lot of times authenticity is about removing the layers, removing the onion, removing the crust of all these yucky things that people have put on us, and to identify our own selves, because we're in here, like you and your true self. It's inside, it's waiting for you. You just have to be sure to do the work to get that person out, because he wants, they want, you want to be exactly who you are, because the world is needing you. The world needs you. But if you keep hiding and keep suppressing the truth of who you are, it's going to make it even more difficult for you to start the process. But you can. And it is, who am I? Why am I like this? Who do I want to be? And how can I become that person?
And how do I become that person? I think is the more difficult work,
Yes.
within those 4 prongs that you talked about. And so before we get into the nuances of all of that, let's give our readers a snapshot of your profession world, because I know if I'm listening, I'm like, well, wait a minute, what does she do? How did you get to the point where you decided that this was the work that I wanted to do and this is what I needed to study in order to become that?
Yeah. I actually didn't know. It was kind of by happenstance. Like I said, I read this one article and I was thinking, authenticity, isn't everybody authentic? And I literally was in my 20s and I didn't know. I was like, that seems like what does that mean? Because I didn't ever like heard the term that people were not authentic. I didn't know. And by that time I had my bachelor's and my master's degree. And the idea of people not being true to themselves was a complete brand new concept to me. I felt like this has been happening all along. And then it helped me to really understand my relationships. It helped me to understand different things about different other people, because I had always made the assumption that people were like me. And so I started to dig deep.
Wow.
I started to dig deep about what it was to be authentic and what did that encompass. And so I've read so many articles, and actually we call the father of positive psychology or positive or authenticity, Dr. Martin. He works at Penn State. I emailed him and I was like, hey, so I hear that this term authenticity is been around for a while, since 1998. You talked about authenticity and being more positive. I don't know what that means. Can you help me? He emailed me back. And he said, people are always going to struggle with being true to themselves in their religion, their sexuality, their politics. He said, and it was like this whole litany of things. He said, and if you can help people in certain areas, he said, you'll always be employed, because people will always need help in those areas, because others have defined those areas for other people. And I thought,
wow.
what? Seriously? Quit playing. So he said, you should pick so he had like 10 areas. He said, pick 2 of them, study them, and always be a good learner in those areas. And so I did. So I picked sexuality and I picked religion as it relates to authenticity. And I just went all the way in. So I have 2 doctorate degrees, but the second one is more important than the first one, because it really allowed me the opportunity to learn about truth.
Wait. I have 2 doctorate degrees, and the second one is more important than the first one.
Yeah.
Clearly, who says that? Go ahead.
Me.
Congratulations, Hamaria. That's awesome.
So yeah, my first talk is about counseling, and I was like, I don't like counseling people like that. That's not fun. But I was like, listen, I'm already in here, so we're gonna just get on done. Then the second one was really about the process that it took for me to learn more about the human race and humans in general. When people ask, what do you do? I was like, I study humans. That's what I do in my career. I'm a human psychologist. That's what I do. So my second degree is in human services with a concentration in industrial organizational psychology. So my focus is how people operate within their own everyday lives, and then how they operate in their careers. And so that's how I merge the 2. I guess my profession is multiple layers.
So then, I mean, that's really interesting. So then how would you define your purpose and call in the world?
I love to help people to connect their career and their passion. A career is something that you're going to do lifelong, and
Uh,
so is your passion. But if you can connect the two and find a equal level plane within the two ideas, then your life will be more enriched and your life will be greater. Even if your career is being an actor or being a psychologist or being a consultant, if you merge that with the truth of you and the passion that you have around that area, then life becomes fun. It becomes easier. It's not as task
uh.
oriented. You give yourself freedom to really be this amazing human. So that's what I do. I love to connect people's passion to their careers.
I love that. And in the age of COVID-19 and all the systemic issues that we're experiencing, as a human race, what are you seeing to be right now the difficulties that people are experiencing to be able to connect their career and their passions? Or are you seeing that?
Yes, people are starting to shed the who I was and embrace who I am. Because in their careers, a
Mm,
lot of times people have been forced almost or feeling like they've been forced to be in this box of a career, but now they're giving themselves the okay, the approval to be who they really want to be. I've had so many clients that's like, okay, you know what? I have hated this job and I'm glad I got laid off because now I get to go do something I really want. And I hear that person after
mm.
person, and I'm like, yes, I'm so excited for you. I'm so glad to be in this journey with you because that's what I want people to see, that you don't have to be anything other than what you like. And I used to laugh when people say, "Oh, well, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I'm thinking, well, why do I have to define it into one thing? I could be lots of things. Why do you have to try to drill me down to a thing? Well, if I want to say I want to be this and this
Right.
and this, I have a whole lifetime to be those things. So don't just put me in a box. I've had like 5 different careers over my journey, and I liked every single one of them while I was doing those things. So when it comes to different people, I encourage them and say, if you want to do something else, do it. And who said that you had to do one thing? Who said that you couldn't be a podcast person and a consultant and a parent and a sister and a brother? Who said you have multiple things that you do in your life already? So why not be that in your career? So just having people to know it's okay to have these differences and to be all of these complexities and have these complexities is my joy. I enjoy it.
I love that. And that actually is, I think, the essence as well of people's evolutionary process within defining and redefining their purpose. And people say to me all the time as I connect Plan A to other individuals in their lives, it seems like when you say Plan A that there's just this one defined moment and that's just it. I'm like, no, it's not. You will have the B's, the C's, the D's, and the E's, and all these other different areas that would lead you to your Plan A. But the Plan A process in itself is something that's constantly redefined. When I first started out my work, as you know, like it was all about image consulting and life coaching, marrying the two together. And slowly but surely, as I wanted to again hone different areas of my life, just like you, I just said to myself, okay, where am I at in this day and in this period? And next, what do I want to do? And then the next step, and then the next step. And here I am now, about to be 15 years later, and all in this, and everything has shifted. Isn't that what we
Yes.
want?
We do. Who wants to live a boring life? Who wants to be,
Yeah.
I don't want to be, and it could, back in the day where you would go to a job and you would work for 30 years, they would give you a watch and you'd get a retirement because you worked on your pension and they say, see you later. But that's not the world that we live in today. People are doing
Mm,
multiple things and they have multiple interests, and people can do multiple things and have their multiple interests. They just have to know within themselves it's an evolution. But I just like you, every human, we're gonna have this evolution. No one is gonna end up be like, tomorrow I'm gonna be a CEO, I'm gonna run a multi-million-dollar company, and I just graduated from 5th grade. That's just not how it happens. You know what I'm saying? It's like an
mm,
evolution, and it's
yeah.
interesting to me that we can understand how evolution happens in education, K through 12. We do our 4 years or more, but we don't give that same exact evolution when it comes to our everyday life. We don't give that same evolution when it comes to
Woo!
the things that we want to do in our life, but it's the same thing. If you have to learn and grow to be educated, as you are learning and growing in order to have math and language and science, the same exact thing happens within us as humans. We have to learn and to develop and grow. How do we connect to language? How do we connect to science? How do we connect to language arts? How do we connect to Spanish, whatever it is? How do we connect with that? But we have to find our place and be connected to those things. But that also includes, how am I connected to the world of work? How am I connected to myself? Am I connected to my family? So we just have to just give ourselves enough wusa, enough space to know that we are all interconnected. And it's not going to be a process that you just wake up one day and you just know. Even though I had to, even though my authenticity was a little different than a lot of people, I still had to wake up and realize, whoa, this is how I am. This is how I've always been. We all have to come to a point. I'd like to call it that aha moment. You're like, oh, wait, I get it. I get it. I get that. This is me. This is who I am. I like this person. Like, yo, this is great. Like, we all have to have that aha moment in our lives.
She dope.
Yeah, this is dope chick right here. She killing it. We all have to have that, because if we don't, then we, again, do the world a disservice. We do ourselves a disservice. We do our families a disservice, because we haven't embraced like that, the fact that I like fried chicken, and that's why I got this second chin, and I'm okay with it. It's all good.
You living your best life. I love it.
The best life, which I have to wear this turtleneck because you can't see it as good. My best life, though, because I make modifications for the way that I am, right? I'm out here living in the
Hamaria, I'm loving this conversation.
I'm just saying. Yeah. So y'all can see me.
So here's something that. So okay, I get that, and if I'm listening to this, a lot of things that separates us from having this more authentic sense of self are tragedies that happens in our lives, and you also, when you're talking about your work, systems, religion, sexuality, like these larger structural pieces of saying this is who you should be, and as life happens, you had to figure out those things as the layers peel back. For someone who is trying to get over personal tragedy in their life and not to have that defined and attached, to them being able to recreate themselves or to live a more authentic life, what do you say to them? How do we get to a place of wholeness within those spaces?
A lot of times we hold ourselves accountable, or hold in our hearts the coulda, shoulda, wouldas when it comes to tragedy. I could have done this differently, or I could have done that differently, or I wish I would have, or if I wouldn't have done this, this would have happened. But the truth is that worrying is never, or putting the things that you could have done or should have done into your everyday life. If this has happened to you, if you were a part of it, it's understanding that this is what happened. This was the way of the world. This was a tragedy that you should acknowledge. You should acknowledge. It's almost like the stages of grief, where you have to acknowledge that this has happened and identify your role or your space in it. So like both of my parents are deceased. So my father died when I was very young. I was like 15 when my dad died. That could have been, it was definitely a defining moment because I was a daddy's girl. But the tragedy of that could have impacted my entire life in a negative way. But my thing about understanding tragedy is, what was the good of the relationship? What good can come out of it? If I was able to experience this, why was it for me and not someone else? And if it was me, how can I grow from it? So if it was sexual abuse or physical abuse, if that was you can't change it. It's a part of your history. It's already been written. But what you can do is empower yourself to be better because of it. Either being, maybe you need to speak out more about it. Maybe you need to do the inner healing of what it meant and how it helped to shape you or what it did to shape you. And with that learning, with that acknowledgement, you may have to grieve a little bit to say, who a part of who I thought I was, I won't be that person anymore because of this experience. But you also have to get to a point of acceptance. How can I accept that this is now a part of my history, that this is a part of now who I am, and I cannot rewrite it. I cannot redo it. It's here. And once I accept it, how can I move forward because of it? And that's the same exact thing when it comes to anything that you deal with, a car accident or anything, any tragic event that you've dealt with. It is almost like you have to think about like how you would deal with grieving. You have to grieve the loss of this thing or how it was or what it was. But you also have to understand that once you accept that this is now a part of who you are, it doesn't have to change your trajectory. It doesn't have to change who you become. It only is maybe a pause, not I think about tragedy as being like coming to a stoplight. The difference between a green light and a stoplight is that you have to stop, not yield, but stop. And you have to be there for a while. But then a green light comes and then you can go. But it's up to you in your own life how long you stop. And then when the green light comes on, and it even may be a slow progression at first before you really start hitting it in, like really start going fast. I'm a fast driver, so I kind of move fast. But you're in that process, how long is it going to take? But the longer you stop, think about how if you were at a stop sign or stop light too long, the world around you keeps moving. It doesn't stop because you stopped. The things around you keep progressing and keep going. Things keep happening in your life and other people's lives. But the longer that you stop, and it's not to say how long you need to be there, because it's up to you how long you need to be at that stop. But however long you need to be there, just don't stay there too long, because you may be losing more than gaining as if you stay there in that place. So in order to kind of address tragedy, it's how long what do you need to do to deal with the inner workings of accepting that this is a part of your history, and how now can you use it to empower yourself to move forward?
Wow. And I could imagine too, Hamari, you're a very young woman.
Mm-hmm.
And you were speaking about those layers of authenticity being, pulled back. Having two deceased parents at such a young age, were there different parts of your authenticity that you rediscovered or discovered for the first time after these early departures from your parents?
What I learned, I think more so from my mom, because she died just more recently than my father, is that my mother said this to me, and I think it was the best thing that she could have ever said. She said, "You were the best daughter that you could have ever been to me. You were the best daughter
Wow.
that you could have ever been to me." And that really hit me, because that means is that I had also done a good job of learning my mother's authenticity, learning the way that I could love her the right way, to make sure that she felt confident, to make sure that she felt secure, to make sure that she understood that as a daughter that I was going to be there to support her, because again, I was whole. Super difficult to be able to love someone else and to give your all to someone else if you don't already have something of abundance to give. So I think that is what I learned
That's
the
right.
most from that experience, is the fact that I don't have any regrets, because I loved her how I knew she wanted to be loved. And so even though it was still sadness in my heart, because I was my girl, I was my homie, I love her so much. Um,
Yeah.
but it still makes me feel good that she was proud of me. She was proud of the person that she helped to mold. And I was proud of the person that I was able to embrace as my parents. Like I feel like that is one of the
Yeah.
greatest blessings I could have ever asked for, is that I got to love my mother perfectly, imperfectly. Like I was so imperfect in my love, but it was perfect in enough that she received love, and so did I. And I think that that's the blessing is in all of this, is that I was like, I was a darn good daughter, like I did that thing, anything
Yeah.
that my mom ever needed. And it even didn't have to be money. It was like emotional support, love, care. Um, the year that she passed, I lived in Texas and she was still in Illinois. I came home 52 times.
Mm.
52 times, back and forth, back and forth. And I would not have changed anything of it because she wouldn't let me stay in Illinois. But she's like, no, you're going back to Dallas, you know? But it was
Uh,
just like this beauty around dealing with the tragedy. But it was like, we were doing our best to love each other and to support each other during this very difficult time. So I don't know. I feel like that is what helped me even more so to be like, I'm Celestine's daughter and I have a legacy that I want to leave and I'm going to rock it out for her too. You know, I want to be an extension of who she is in this earth.
yeah. So many people have that was gorgeous, by the way, Hamaria. So many people have a very serious strained relationship with their parents. And you spoke about you being whole all on your own in order to be able to recognize that mom, dad, whomever, like imperfections, wherever that may be, you could love that person just like they could love you. Can you speak to that a little bit about, we have so many judgments that we pass on our parents that we forget that they are also adults living, and traveling through life. They have evolutionary process, which how we began this conversation, just like us as well. How do we get to a place where we can forgive our parents for the things that they could have done better, or maybe the things that we could have done better as a son or a daughter? Where do we start to repair that space?
I love the idea of the five languages of love, the five love languages. I think that that helped me more than anything when it came to the relationship with my own parents. I learned that I receive love differently than they receive love and about their own love language. I am not a gift giver. I like if you come and you vacuum the floor, oh, listen, listen,
Hallelujah.
that's love right there for me. But my mother's her love language, listen, it's the truth. I love vacuum marks in the floor. Oh my gosh, let me tell you. But my mother's love language, hers are words of affirmation. But I had to learn that that's how she
Mm.
received love, and it was different than me. So where I was trying to love her with cleaning up, I was trying to love her when I was growing up. I would try to love her with the things that how I received love, how I liked love to be given to me. And I realized it was like, she didn't appreciate that I mopped this floor. Like, what's going on? But I picked up on when like her second love language was gifts. That's not mine, but hers is gift. So like for Christmas, because my mother had everything, like everything. I would buy my mother toilet paper
Mm.
and like dishwashing liquid and like Tide for the whole year. And you would have thought that I had bought her something from Saks Avenue. She was just like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And it's not like she didn't know that's what I was going to do. That was how she received love. So like having things that made her feel secure. And so I
Mm.
think that is what we have to do as
Yes.
parents for our children, learning how to love them and as us learning how to love our parents. And the thing is that we can't make them love, excuse me, we can't make us love each other the way we receive love. You have to be okay that that's how they receive love. And you also have to be okay how you receive love. But if you don't feel like you receive
Yeah.
that as an adult to another adult, now you can express that to them. Like, I know that tell me if this is right. Are you a person that would rather like have me to do this or me to do this? Would you rather me have a gift or even take like the quiz? Like my family was upset. I'm like, everybody take this quiz so I know what to do for y'all do Christmas, okay? So we gonna take this quiz. We're gonna take this five language love quiz. And this is what is gonna be impeding upon your Christmas gift. Amen. This is what I'm gonna do. So that's just what I did, you know. But like I wanted them to tell their story to me. But that's what we have to remember is that before we got here, our parents had a
Mm.
life. They had their own tragedies, they had their own experiences, they had their own loves, they had their own highs and lows because they're human. They have their own humanistic experience. And as we get older, we have to understand that they made mistakes because they are humans too. And we cannot continue to hold other people at a higher regard or more accountable when you also have to remember that you've made mistakes. And I think for me, the beautiful word is grace. I like to put
Yes.
people in what I call a grace box. Is that you need to be in this box because I may have to give you a little bit more grace than other people. And I may have to sometimes be in that box too. Amen. I have to put myself in a grace box to say, I can't keep doing I'm not a superwoman. Let me put my cape down. You know what? Let me put this superwoman cape in this grace box and let me just be like a regular human, like to accept my flaws and accept who I am and just know that some stuff not gonna get done today. And the way I'm about to sit on this couch and enjoy watching this movie, that's what I'm gonna do. Because we all need to put ourselves sometimes in this grace box. And we have to put our parents there because if we know that they did the best that they could, they did the best that they could.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And speaking, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
And speaking of that grace box, I think right now so many people are overwhelmed with feeling like we got to put the whole world into a grace box just to, maintain our own sense of sanity, but to also have a hope that the dream of the future is going to be a little bit different than what we're experiencing right now. What do you say to so many people who are feeling just completely overwhelmed from a couple of things? Feeling like they're always exercising grace, to other people. I hear a lot of people of color, Black people, having these instances of saying that, looking at all the structural racism that's been happening, forever. And then also a lot of people with COVID-19 concerns and all the health related things that are happening. And the conversation of, should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? They're not wearing the mask, and you're there's this sense of just so much anguish that we are having and experiencing with so many people. How do we get to this space of grace and even know, for ourselves when I've tapped out. I'm tired of giving people grace.
That's amazing. So the thing that we have to remember is that grace and truth are not the same. I can give you grace, but I also can be in my truth. The truth is that 2020 has kicked our tails and it's a whole lot going on. But my truth doesn't mean that I can't say anything. My truth doesn't mean that I'm not living in what could be considered to be chaos. My truth is not that I'm tired of being an advocate for all Black people. I'm tired of, people not understanding this process of what I've dealt with. That's the truth. The grace doesn't mean that you become silent either. It doesn't mean that you have so much grace that you don't have a voice. It doesn't mean that you don't get frustrated because of these situations. It doesn't mean that you don't have anguish or you are not hurting or that you are not feeling all of these different things that's happening in this year or in what we've always dealt with, as people of color. It doesn't mean that. It's not the same thing. What we have to understand is that you can still live in your truth and give a voice to what you're angry, upset, and frustrated about, and still give them grace and other people to learn. Like I was a professor and I could not be upset with a person that did not know the content that I knew. Because that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for me to say, I know this life, I live this life, I experience this life. I'm an expert at this life. I'm an expert at being Black. I know how to be a Black woman in America. Got you. But I also have to understand that even though I may not want to, if I want people to be better, then I'm going to have to learn how to educate them to be better to me so that you can be better to people that look like me. And so it's not about giving them so much grace to say, well, you should be doing this and you should be wearing this and you should be doing this and you should have this. But if I'm not going to educate you on how to love me, how to educate you on how to do better for people that look like me, then I'm going to do myself a disservice. And see, that's my truth. My truth is that I may not want to stand up and be the end all be all for Black folk. To some people, I am, though. And I can't stop that. And I can't change it. But what I am going to do is make sure that I educate you. I'm going to educate you in the way that I want to be treated. Then I'm going to let you know this is the way I like to be treated. Not every single person that is Black, every single person that is a woman, every single person that is a this. I can't tell you that, but I can sure tell you how to treat Hamaria. I can sure tell you how to treat me. And that is my truth. So when people get all upset and frustrated, what I'm saying is like, well, what education are you providing to people?
Wow.
What do you provide? Because I'm not going to get mad at my student who's a freshman in college if they are not completely understanding the topic of psychology. I'm not putting them in a psychology 400 course and they just got to school and they just graduated from high school. So again, we have to understand that this is a layer to people of ignorance that they may not be aware of. And I don't have to necessarily be like instructor Hamaria, but I surely can be the one that help you to identify how to treat me and people that may look like me. That's what I've learned. So I'm the big mouth at my team. Like one of my leaders, he made the statement. He said, we were on a call and he said, yeah, this program is for the Blacks and they're going to be doing this and they're going to be doing that. And so I was like, did anybody say something to him about that? Oh, okay, you know what? Let me help
sir. Sir.
Excuse me, sir. So I went through the proper protocols. Excuse me. Did we understand that this happened and this transpired? Because it was not going to make any sense for me to be upset about something that I wasn't going to do something about. Because my thing is that if I'm mad about it, then that means it's my responsibility to do something. So I'm not going to be a part of the complaining crew if I'm not going to be a part of the action crew. So I put things in action. Hey, can I have a quick moment with you? So I know that you're part of a group of people because your family is from India, right? Cool. Would you like for me to call you the Indian? Okay. So let me just say that a few times. Hey, Indian. What's up, Indian? Hey, what is it like to be Indian? I said, so if you didn't want that to happen for your group of people, for your people that you represent, I don't want it to be for mine either. But until you make a parallel for people sometimes, you have to meet people where they are, right? So he was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Okay, good. Oh, what should I do? Good. So I want you to apologize, not just to me, but everybody. Because everybody that hurt you, now that you have this new revelation, I want you to be okay with understanding that this is you've been educated. So now you're going to have some action. And that's what I think we have to do. And again, I'm not trying to say that everybody in the world, everybody of people of color, everybody that's dealing with COVID, but sometimes we have to be educated enough for ourselves. If that person is not wearing a mask, my education is I want to wear one because I want to be safe. But it makes no sense for me to complain because I'm not going to give them the list of CDC. The CDC said this and, women, the WHO said this. I'm just going to make sure that me and my family are safe. So sometimes you have to educate. Sometimes you have to ignore.
And for people who are feeling Hamaria like they don't know the difference between the two and they're trying to figure out how to set a boundary and educate at the same time, where does boundaries come into play in this conversation?
Yeah, questions. You ask questions, that creates boundaries. Hey, I'm not sure if you knew this, but, I'm curious on how you grew up, or I'm curious on where that idea came from. Asking good coaching words, we would say. I'm curious. I'm interested. I'm actually not sure what you meant by this. Or can you explain to me kind of where that idea came from? Not to, and I know sometimes people are like, that's a cop out. It's not, because you want to understand people because you want to make your point. But you have to understand where people came from before you can drive on your point. Because if you are so focused on your point, then the problem is that you didn't understand, because they could have good intention. I honestly believe that people have good intentions. Their good intentions just go awry. They go a little haywire. So what was the intention behind the comment? What is the intention behind why they're not doing the way that they're doing? Again, it could be simple miseducation, or they could just be stubborn and this is what they want to do and how they want to do it. And you just leave those folks alone because you can't change everybody. You can't educate everybody. One thing that I've learned as a teacher, if you don't want to do your work, I'm not going to chase you down. I'm just going to give you this good old F and say, God bless you. And I'll see you next semester. You know what I mean? So sometimes you just have to be okay with where people are and listen first to where they are, because that will give you the leeway, or that will give you the to see what kind of
Yeah.
road you can go with them. Because some people are like, oh, was that offensive? Mm-hmm, it was. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it's just, we don't want to be that sometimes, but I'm okay with it. I've embraced that I am going to educate everybody that I can, because I don't want to complain about the way you treat me, because I'm going to tell you exactly how to treat me.
Mm. Yeah.
What's acceptable
No,
and what's
that's
not, you
real.
know?
That's absolutely real. And I think like, yeah, and there's so many people who have that. Even when I'm coaching clients, I always say, well, have you trained them to teach you a certain kind of way? Have you taught them to teach you to treat you, sorry, a certain kind of way versus not? And so, Hamaria, a lot of things that we've been talking about in this conversation literally is the umbrella of authenticity. And we've talked about the internal parts of it, the external, and then also looking at familial pathologies and how that also relates to our purpose and calling in life and our career as a whole. How has your faith, how has that played a central part in you developing a greater sense of authenticity within yourself? And has that always been a driving force for you?
Yeah. So I am a believer of Jesus Christ, and without having the try Jesus, please don't try me. That's my theme. I love that song because I want you to understand. I want you to understand. I love the Lord. I do. My friend Jabari and Toby, they wrote that song, and try him. I want you to try Jesus. Don't try me though, because I fight. But what I learned is that I fight. Mm-hmm. And I fight. I used to fight like, now I fight with education. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that
Yeah,
little baby that don't know. Let me
you
help
got
you.
it.
I got you. So faith has always been I don't know anything other than to have faith. I don't know any other way. Just like my authenticity, I don't
Mm.
know any other way, because
Hmm.
that's how I was trained. I
Right.
was groomed. I grew up in church. All thing I know is church. When they said that we couldn't go to church, I'm thinking, no, what is I'm going to do on Sundays? Because that's all I know is we go to church. That's what I know. That's all that
Yeah.
that's all that I know. And what I can tell you is that the principles of faith for me are the principles that I live by. That I'm going to live in grace, and I'm going to live in truth, and I'm going to live in love, because I know love conquers all. Like, it's the principles of what I know about faith that helps me to love people even that are difficult to love, and to understand that I don't have to
Mm.
be the one that if that I see ignorance, that I have to, even though I'm going to do my part, right? I'm going to do my part. What religion, and well, really not religion, because religion has done a lot to hurt people. I think what a relationship with God has done for me is it creates an opportunity for me to understand that I don't have to hold everything to me, because there's someone greater than me that has more authority, control, understanding, wisdom, and knowledge. And I have a small portion of it, but there's somebody else that knows more than what I know.
Mm.
And in some regards, I have to just surrender to the fact that I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't understand. I may never know. I may never understand. But that's where authenticity then also kicks in. But I have my part to play. And what has the creator created me to do in the world so that I can be doing my part? That is what brings me to a place of peace, is because I know I was placed in this world to do something. And if I don't do it, it's my fault, not his, mine. It's my fault. I didn't do my part. So every day, one of the things I actually have it on a card is I ask God, what is it that you want me to do today? Because it's
Mm.
24
That's
hours.
powerful.
I don't know what to do with them. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. And I may have something on my agenda, but I don't really know what to do with my time every day. I don't really know I don't really know what to do. So if you are the creator, you have all things in your hands, and you got this thing on lock, Then I'm going to ask you, what do you want me? What do you want from me today? Um, and then I just leave my day to having freedom to be like, okay, this is where I feel like that gut feeling. Oh, this is what I should be doing now. Oh, this is what I should
Yeah.
be saying. And this is how I should be going because I've checked in first before I start, check my phone and do, God, what is it that you want me to do today? How can I be the best
Wow.
self today? The best me, like, you know, and what is it that do I need to work on something? Like, do we need to have like a little powwow about the way that I talked to that lady yesterday? Like, what we got to talk about today? And I think that for me grounds me every day to make sure that my days are purposeful, and that is how I operate every day. So, I guess hopefully to answer your question, how does spirituality, how does my religion, how does my faith make sure that I'm grounded? I ask to make sure that I'm doing okay every day, the creator of all things. And I also just want to check in with him, not to say that I should know what to do, but just to say, is there something that I can do? And if I get something like, you know what, you should probably give
Yeah.
more today. I was like, I'm going to go out tomorrow. This is what I said to myself yesterday. I was like, I feel like I need to give more because I have a lot to give. And I think sometimes people think giving is of themselves, but money helps too, right? Money answers a lot of things. Okay. So I was like, how can I give to the poor? How can I give to others? How can I give more, not just from my voice, but from what I've gained and gathered from finances? What are other things that I can do? And that is what faith means to me, is that you don't just give a part of yourself, but you are open and freely give of whatever you have, not to give it away where you're
Yeah.
depleted, but to give from your own abundance. So that's how faith
And you are,
intertwines to me. Mhm.
I love it. And you are literally, as you started the very beginning of this podcast conversation, you are co-creating your very best life.
Yeah.
Hamaria, listen, we have to have you back for a part two, especially at the end of this year. I know there's a lot of people who are going to have some questions for you in my DMs. So, listen, where can we learn more about you and be able to connect with your teachings as well as maybe seek out your consultant services?
Yeah. So everything that I have is under Dr. Hamaria C. So you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you have not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do so. That's my favorite platform um, because it all encompasses the stuff I like. It's good. So find me there. I actually just shut
Yeah.
down my old website and a brand new one is coming up. So in just about 2 weeks, my tech team should have my Dr. Hamaria C website up. But until then, just find me on Instagram, find me on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And I also have a YouTube channel. So if you put in Dr. Hamaria C, you can find me on YouTube. Now, all of those are going to be tips about leadership and about careers with a little bit of dash of being true to yourself. So you can find me a lot of different places. And I'm so excited. I'll receive all of you with love and appreciation and gratitude. So yeah, I'm excited. Thank
And
you.
she will do that. She Thanks so much for this time, Hamaria. I can wait to have you back. All right, listeners, you've heard it here. Now for our digital audience, so excited to bring this new feature to you. You can learn more about Dr. Hamaria Crockett. I have all of her information at the base of this podcast. Again, you can learn more about me by visiting clayswilliams.com. And I'm on all of your favorite social media by the handle of @PlanA with Clay. Folks, remember @PlanA with Clay. Clay is with a K. Thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing you in our very next episode.